Hey everyone, John Boitnott here with the podcast Everything Entrepreneurship. With this latest edition, I'm here with Vanessa White. She is a divorce master coach and runs her own business where she helps people with all sorts of issues and entrepreneurs dealing with relationship issues. Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Hi, John. It's lovely to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's great to have you. Tell us a little bit about you, your background, and your business and what you do.
Yeah, I will, sure. As you said, I am a relationship and divorce coach, and I use my learned expertise along with my lived experiences to support emotionally and practically my clients when they're going through issues within their relationships, separation, divorce, how to have healthy relationships, how to date in a fun and less stressful way. Um, so they can actually redefine their love life and recover from any kind of heartbreak or breakup.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So, what made you want to set up this business? Why did you set up the business in the first place?
Well, my why is kind of all about my personal journey, really. I am divorced myself, and I went through a very difficult relationship and divorce journey. And when I did that some time ago, there weren't kind of podcasts, social media wasn't really a thing. And I navigated that journey myself, the kind of recovery and emotional journey. And I realized actually that I had a lot of kind of strategies and skills that I used on myself that I could share with other people. And so I started to get trained and get accredited. And I then decided I could set up a business because I could actually help other people so that they didn't go through the situations that I had gone through, that they had the support, and really that they could actually build up their self-worth, their self-belief, and actually go into much, much better relationships in the future, which would be much more successful, healthier, and hopefully happier.
Well, with this show, we talk about entrepreneurship a lot. We talk about the struggles that they have creating and building their business. One thing that gets sort of left by the wayside a lot and doesn't get talked about nearly as much are the relationships that these entrepreneurs are having. I mean, I've known many entrepreneurs over the years, just to say the least, and all of them were having relationships in addition to, or mostly. Some would cut out the relationships completely so that they could concentrate on their business, and their business was their relationship. But I think that, you know, in terms of these entrepreneurs who want to have relationships while they are running their business, it's not always easy to do. I would love to just hear what your perspective is on that. And maybe let's lean into some ideas on what entrepreneurs can do to have more successful relationships while they're running their business.
I think that's a really great point. And as an entrepreneur myself, so, for anybody, when you start up a business, it takes everything to kind of get it going and running. And your work life balance becomes really out of kilter, I think, for most people. And that in itself can put a real strain on relationships, even if you've had a pretty stable relationship up until that point. If one of the relationship sets up a business and really is putting all their focus into that, there's also financial risk involved when you're setting up a business and getting it going. And that can really kind of put a real problem in a relationship because your focus is less on your partner, much more on the business. And I would definitely say that, you're going to be meeting a lot of new people. This can also be a problem in relationships. So, people who are entrepreneurs and starting a new venture are going out networking, they're going to a lot more meetings, they're obviously trying to get known for the venture that they're starting. And sometimes that can cause instability within the relationship if the other partner feels insecure, doesn't know the people they're meeting. There's lots of ways that it can shake up the dynamic. And I would definitely say key point is good communication, because if either of you doesn't feel that things are particularly good in the relationship for your own personal reasons, if you keep that to yourself and don't share that at least with your partner and try and understand where each other is coming from, I think it's really, really difficult to navigate.
Yeah, got it. I'm reminded of a friend of mine who, well, him and his wife have the same interests, which are both very entrepreneurial. And one thing that they do a lot is they have started to organize. They do networking. They actually are in charge of the events, and so they're putting on the events with the help of some other people, and they're at all the same events with each other, and they have a child, so they get someone to take care of the child while they're doing all this. But I look at that, and they are just so busy with all these events. It's sort of, it's amazing that they're able to make it all work. But what I wonder is, if what if your partner interested isn't also an entrepreneur, and they are more of a stay-at-home type person, or they have a completely different job someplace else. What are some things that you can do in that type of a relationship to keep the relationship strong? How do you is there boundary setting, or should you what are some things that the couple can do in that situation where one
I
half
think,
is an entrepreneur?
yeah, that's really difficult because, it's having that understanding of what the other one is going through. When we're in a couple together, we don't have to have the same life as our partner. We don't have to do the same things. And actually, in fact, it's quite healthy to have different interests and different focuses of our life, as long as we do come together at some point. That's the problem. If your individual lives take you apart all the time, both physically and emotionally, it's really hard to foster good relations. But you don't have to be doing the same thing. I think boundaries is really important. I think particularly for the entrepreneurial partner, because like we said earlier, it can eat up all of your time, all of your focus, understandably so. But if you don't have boundaries and you never switch off, you never turn that laptop off, you never switch your phone off, you don't actually, when you're on holiday with your partner, you're busy like doing this and, oh, I've just got to ring this, that then is really hard to have a good emotional connection with your partner. So I think boundaries are really important to actually say, right, when I'm on holiday, I will take the time out, or I will just check my emails for an hour at this time every day. So it doesn't mean you have to never look at it, but just have very specific parameters about what you do. I think reassurance, from both parties. Actually, when we feel insecure, we want reassurance from the other person, and feeling like they still notice you, that you notice each other's there, that you're supportive of each other. For either a person in their role, whether they're the entrepreneur, founder of a business, or whether they're doing something completely different, part of a healthy relationship is actually celebrating what our partner is doing. And that doesn't have to be in like a massive fanfare, but actually, we're genuinely pleased for their successes, their little wins. They win an award with their job, or they get a new job, or, their business suddenly really takes off. Actually, what we want is a partner who's going to celebrate those things genuinely with us. No jealousy, no competitive feeling. That's really, really important.
You are a divorce master coach, and I've met more than a few entrepreneurs who have gone through divorce in the past, or who are currently going through it now, or it's getting towards that, towards that. When you are tremendously busy and you are attempting to run a business and you're trying to keep it afloat, and Lord knows that startups are not always easy to, or early stage businesses are not easy to, it's not easy to keep them going, and you're faced with the dissolving of your marriage, or even if it's just a relationship, right? That maybe it's a long time relationship, because a lot of these folks have been with someone for so long. When you're faced for years and years, sometimes 10 years, 5, 10 years, even longer. What are some things that you can do as an entrepreneur, if you're a woman or a man, to make that process not as difficult? how do you get through that as a very busy professional?
Yeah, I mean, divorce is the second most traumatic life event that we go through after death of a loved one. So it is up there in terms of, how we feel about divorce. If you've ever been through one, it is highly stressful, creates a lot of anxiety, obviously high emotion. And that's real because it is, a big emotional roller coaster of a thing. So actually, I would say get support. So, you know, number one, we actually need people around. The tendency can be, particularly if you're a busy person running your own business, to kind of push people away generally and think, oh, I'll just go into my kind of work mode. And you kind of lose that support network. Whereas actually, we want to hang on to that as much as possible. That can come from people at work, obviously, it can come from friends and family. It can also come from professionals like me or other therapists. That sort of support network, it could be with a gym buddy that you go to the
Uh,
gym with,
yeah.
lots of different places. But actually, instead of pushing people away, we're very busy and we've got a divorce, we kind of need to pull some key people around us. I would say get clarity, and this probably is a really kind of resonates with someone who is an entrepreneur, because they're used to kind of getting the facts and understanding things in their business. And I would definitely say that holds true for divorce. There's lots of decisions you have to make when you're going through divorce: finances, children, where you're going to live, all sorts of things. And actually getting clarity from people who know, so whether that's a lawyer, whether that's a financial advisor, whether that's a property expert, it could be all
Mm.
sorts of other professionals. But actually go and speak to people and seek the clarity so that you understand what's expected, you understand where you stand. And that helps take away some of the stress. The not knowing, the burying your head in the sand just increases the overwhelm. And I would say also take some time for yourself, which
Mm.
sounds hard to do when you're running a business and you're going through a divorce. But actually, if your tank is empty, it's really hard to keep going. So actually looking at yourself and thinking, what do I need? And even if it's like 20 minutes a day to sit, have your coffee, just listen to some music, or, go for a walk around the block, but you kind of schedule that time in. It's really, really important, because unless we are in a really good position, it's really hard to deal with everything we're trying to cope with.
That's great. So we have support. Make sure to have the right people around you. This is for entrepreneurs out there who are incredibly busy, but they're going through a
Yes.
divorce or a relationship breakup. So there's support. Have the right people around you. Get clarity. So that means talk to the right people, like lawyers, whether or property managers,
Yeah.
financial, whatever it may be, and take time for yourself.
Yeah.
Any other tips for entrepreneurs going through these types of relationship breakup issues?
I think it's hard that I would actually communicate if you work with a team. So if your business
Mm.
is involved, you've got employees within your business, or business partners, or other people that you work very closely with. I would talk to them. You don't have to give them all the details, but there can be a tendency, particularly if you're generally seen as a successful person, and there's still a lot of shame and feeling
Mm.
like it's a failure. I'm a failure if your marriage ends. I mean, I don't see it like that, but there's still that kind of, in society, there's still quite a lot of that kind of thought process going on. So if you're quite a high flying successful person, it can be easy to think, oh, I'm not going to tell anyone, I'm just going to wait till it's all done. And but actually, because you're on an emotional roller coaster, whoever you are, it's going to affect you in some way. And I would say just telling people that you work with is really good advice. You don't have to go into the details, but just say, look, I just want you to know, my marriage has ended and I'm going through a divorce. I may have to be out of the office sometimes. Things may be difficult for me. I might have to pick the children up more from school or whatever. But just give them a heads up, because otherwise they can't possibly understand. And also they can help you, they can take some load off you at work, hopefully, which actually will help when you're going through the real rawness of the initial divorce process.
That's great. Yeah, really helpful advice there. Bringing it back to communication for those who are going through relationship difficulties right now, maybe they haven't reached divorce yet. You mentioned just how important communication is. I wanted to make sure, I know that we talked about it a little bit, but we may not have gotten to all the communication tips in the relationship that are helpful. Is there anything around communication and some pointers there that can help an entrepreneur or a very busy business professional as they're going through those things? Any
Yeah, and I would actually say, the tips on good communication are pertinent to any relationship, not just our romantic relationships. These are not exclusive to with our partner. The good communication skills is pertinent to whether we're talking to a business partner, a colleague, or to friends or to family. So it's actually, they're applicable to all those areas. Absolutely. I would say, actually honest, open communication. I think we need to feel safe in any environment to be able to express our needs, express our feelings, express our views. And if we don't feel that we can do that to whoever we're talking to, that is obviously a problem, because what happens is we keep those things in, and that just breeds often kind of unsettlement, unhappiness, because we feel we can't actually say what we're feeling and thinking. So if you're in a situation where the person you're communicating with, whether that be your romantic partner or your business partner, you feel, I can't say this because they're going to react in an angry way, or they're going to walk out, or they're going to leave me or whatever, then that's a problem. And I would say that's something to really think about, because we should be able to be open and honest. I think really listening to the other person. So we don't often listen to what people are saying. So we come at conversations with our own agenda. That's natural, that's human. But actually what we want to do, particularly if there are issues within any relationship, we want to actually listen to what the other person is saying. What are they actually saying? What are they actually meaning? And very often we want to kind of jump in with a solution or an answer. And this is pertinent in work as well. We want to kind of solve it. And that sometimes means we don't listen, because sometimes people are talking to us. They don't want a solution. They don't want us to solve it. They actually just want to be heard. So I think we have to be really much better at doing that. And yeah, focus on the listening and what the person is actually saying. Um, I think conflict is really important here, because conflict is part of any healthy relationship. Again, whether that's professional or whether it's romantic, we're never going to agree with everyone on everything, and life would be pretty boring if we all did, because we never have any personality or anything to talk about. So conflict is not the problem, but what we want to think about is, how do we handle conflict? Because how I handle it and how you handle it might be very different. I might not like actually having conflict, so I will do everything to avoid it. I won't say things, whereas somebody else might really want to tell everyone everything in a really angry way.
Mm,
Those two things are not, are quite different. So we want to kind of understand where the other person comes from. How do we resolve conflict? Because obviously, once we've had a disagreement, we want to be able to move on from that. So how do we resolve it? What do I do? Some people kind of want to walk away and go around the block, and then they come back and they're kind of cool and calm and it's okay. Someone else might want to stay in the room and shout it out with the other person until it's resolved. Again, those are quite different resolution kind of ways. And we want to kind of understand, because what can happen is, if one person wants to go around the block, the other person wants to shout it out, we lose actually talking about what the original conflict was about. And it becomes about the way we're trying to resolve the conflict.
mm.
So we want to kind of really think about that.
Great advice. All right, Vanessa, any other further top tips you would give to any entrepreneurs who are struggling with relationship issues? Just anything you feel like you'd be remiss if you didn't mention as a helpful advice.
I think it's about support when we're in a relationship, and I would go back to, if your relationship has generally been good with your partner, um and it then is changing, or you don't feel like things are quite the same, go back to that person you met. Remember why you started the relationship in the first place, and actually, talk to that partner, not in a kind of you do this, you're making me do that, you make me feel this, but we want to come from I, this is how I feel. And actually, by focusing, because sometimes life's busy, particularly if you're an entrepreneur, even if you've been running your business for quite a long time or a short time, you have a lot going on. And it sometimes removes us from the core qualities and values that we're in our relationship before. And I think we need to kind of remind ourselves about that person. Sometimes relationships change, people change. Relationships are not meant to always last forever. There's very much a thing that you meet someone and it will last forever. That's not always the case. And that doesn't mean it was a bad relationship. You might have had 5 brilliant years, you might have had 1 brilliant year. So it's also about when things are not going right, and I mean consistently, and you've tried to resolve them together, maybe have some couples counseling as well. If it's really not right and you're really not consistently happy, then it is okay to call it a day.
Mm.
That is not a failure, but actually, everyone deserves to be happy. Everybody deserves the best in love, in relationships, in their life, in their work life. And we have to remember that, we deserve the best and the best behavior from other people, and to show up in the best way ourselves.
Vanessa, where can viewers and listeners, talk to you, see what you have to say about everything? Where are you on social? How can they reach you if they'd like to use your services as well?
Yeah, that would be great. I've got a website which is www.vanessawhite.co.uk. I'm on LinkedIn, Vanessa White. I'm on
Mm.
Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, Vanessa White Coaching. I will always have a short conversation with anybody to see if they would like to work with me, whether I'm the right person for them, and so I can understand what they're looking for. So I will do that. There's no obligation. So I'm always happy to do that with your listeners. That would be great.
Sounds great, Vanessa. This is a subject that doesn't get talked about hardly at all. In so far as I've seen, it's not even part of the discussion a lot of the time. And so I'm really happy to sort of bring it to the people so that they can actually get some good advice on how to manage their relationships. Because the conversation is always, let's build, let's grow, let's get the company moving, let's scale, let's market, let's network. And there's hardly any conversation about the fallout related to relationships or how.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we're not just one dimensional. We're humans, we're people. Yes, we have a drive. Yes, we might have huge ambition. Yes, we might want to, like you say, scale our business. We might want to make X amount of dollars, and that's all great, but we're not just that. We have feelings, we have emotions, we have people in our lives that we want to love, and actually we want to also cherish ourselves and make sure we're the best version of us. And I think it is forgotten sometimes, particularly when you're so busy and so focused and driven on one area of life. We actually need to take a step back sometimes and look at the whole. We're three-dimensional, we're human, and we mustn't forget that sometimes.
Vanessa White, divorce master coach, who helps entrepreneurs and many others who are going through relationship difficulties. Great to have you on Everything Entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
You got it. Take care.
Bye.